Hi, welcome to TechCrunch TV. My guest on Ask a VC this week is Mike Maples of Floodgate. Very well-known VC in our community that I've finally wrangled up to the studio.
Thanks
Thank you
for
for
having
coming. So let's get to some reader questions.
Sure.
David wants to know, do VCs and angel investors invest in startups where the founders are middle-aged or older? If they don't, why not?
Well, I can't characterize for everybody, but that's not that important to us, age. The thing that we look for in an entrepreneur is authenticity. And so the oldest person that we've invested in, I think, is over 60 years old. And the youngest person that we invested in, well, the Weebly guys had to fly back to Penn State to get their diplomas to graduate.
Who is the 60-year-old?
Sean McLaren, and he may be older than that, but you know, he's a very experienced, passionate, authentic entrepreneur. So the thing that we look for is this the type of company where you couldn't imagine that entrepreneur doing anything else? That's more important to us, the authenticity and the passion, than how old are they or how young are they.
Do you think normally that happens to be found by people in their 20s and 30s, though?
Well, I think that people who are young have the advantage of a couple things. First of all, they're willing to work completely 24/7 and have no other commitments in life and don't care about the wife and kids or husband, kids, whatever.
Hopefully because they don't have them, not
right.
They
just don't have any conflicting priorities, and so being 1,000% committed is an option. The other thing is a lot of times they're too young to know how impossible it is, and so you know there's an aspect of startups where it's you're running across Highway 101 blindfolded, and when you're really young, you're young enough to run at full speed and hope you don't get hit.
Right.
And some don't.
Right. Okay, Sabu asks, is there a certain percentage of ownership you absolutely must own when making an investment? I believe some early seed investors like First Round Capital and True Ventures won't invest unless they can obtain 20% of a company. Others like Union Square Ventures take a smaller percentage.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know if that's true about True.
And I should say, I don't know if it's true. I think many VCs want 20% or more to make it worth their while.
So we don't look at it that way. So we've done a bunch of analysis. If you look from '03 to the present day, 10,000 companies a year angel funded, 1,500 companies VC funded, 80 worth more than 50 million, 15 worth more than 500 million. So our entire business is all about finding those Thunder Lizard $500 million and above companies. In my view, there is nothing else. And so if we find a company we think has a chance to be one of those, we get in any way we can. And we don't have too much pride around ownership. We just want in and help however we can.
And on the other side, willing to pay almost any valuation?
Well, you know, we can get ourselves in trouble, but you know, a lot of people thought that it was too expensive to pay 20 pre for Twitter as a seed deal, and I don't regret that. So, you know, I mean, a lot of people's models broke with that valuation, but we were willing to make that bet because we thought it was going to be meaningful.
Peter asks a few questions about Dig. He wants some you knew a question about Dig was coming. He wants some insight into the current state of the company. Wants to know what lessons can be learned from their version 4 launch and subsequent user drop-off, and why he thinks, in his words, Reddit is now kicking Dig's butt.
Okay, well, in that question, there's sort of question and sort of opinion in there.
Exactly.
Generally speaking, my opinion of Dig is that when everybody was excited about it, they were probably too excited, and now people are probably too down on it. So I think if you looked objectively at their revenues and business results, which I'm not in a position to disclose, unfortunately, people would say that the world is too negative on Dig relative to its performance and its execution and what it's accomplished. And so, you know, I think there are some good lessons. I think that probably the latest version of Dig rolled out. It was too much of a discontinuous shift. I think Kevin has articulated well some of the things in the past that maybe left some of his original community behind. Beyond what Kevin said, though, I'm pretty careful not to comment on what Dig thinks Dig should be doing. Right? I kind of think that's up for them to make their own statement in the market, and have, for what it's worth, I would do the investment again 1,000-fold. Right? I mean, I just think Kevin Rose is an exceptional entrepreneur. and I don't think you've heard the last of him or Dig. You know, I think that there's still a lot of good things to happen
right.
in the future.
You know, we see so many companies like Dig fall into this hype cycle where there's so much attention paid, and then, you know, I would argue there were some missteps made by the company, even though, you know, I'm very bullish on Kevin as well. Generally, there's some missteps made by the company, maybe some stumbles, you know, trying to react to those. You know, and so then they kind of get on the other side of the hype cycle. Does anyone ever come back? I mean, everyone brings up, you know, Steve Jobs came back in and turned around Apple, but you know,
that's a pretty good. It's the most valuable company in the
But you know, if we did everything based on comparing ourselves to Apple, we would be wrong a lot of the time.
Other than the fact that the most valuable company in the entire technology business was a huge turnaround, give me an example, right?
Well, I mean, on the startup level, though, I mean, especially with the consumer internet, because these things do tend to just snowball, and like talent is a big question. I mean, can Dig attract the best talent right now? You know.
Well, one company I remember, and this is a little bit in the past, but Ask.com. I remember it was Ask Jeeves with the Butler, and then there was the crash of the .coms, and everybody just wrote him off. And they brought in this new guy to run the company, and he ended up doing a great job. And Ask ended up becoming a much more valuable company, you know, many multiples more valuable than when people wrote the company off. And so I think that that Dig will do just fine if they just stay focused on their game and their users and just build value one day at a time. And it's funny because, Dig's made some missteps, but every company that I work with, even the ones that are awesome and successful, inside, you look inside, you're just like, oh my God, how are we surviving? We're making so many screwed up decisions. And so just none of these companies are precisely fine-tuned executors, right? Every startup company is characterized by chaos and panic and you know, drama and the sine wave, and you know, it's just life. That's welcome to my neighborhood, right?
right. You got to be comfortable with chaos.
Exactly. If you're not, you're in the wrong business. If you're not,
So, a question from Mike about what's happening in the whole market with educational tablets. You know, we've got the No tablet, we've got, you know, the degree to which existing e-readers are playing a role, and then, you know, Chegg was going to do this tablet. So he's curious, have they canceled that? Either the single dual screen, says the software looks interesting, but was the foray into hardware a smart move?
Well, okay, so there's two companies there, right? So just stepping way back, the thing I got interested in a few years ago was that textbooks are sort of the media that time forgot.
Right.
And so, you know, video was being transformed and music was being transformed. And here you had textbooks, a $20 billion industry in the US. And, you know, it was like 100 years ago type of technology. And so, you know, you just saw this huge pricing umbrella and the rapacious prices of used books in the bookstores. And so we just thought there was a chance to totally disrupt textbooks. And Usman's first foray into doing that was to reinvent the pricing model around rentals, which I still think is brilliant and just awesome. And I mean, this is well documented even in TechCrunch that the company's a money machine.
Right.
I can't really comment on what they're about to do, but you know, I just think it's a brilliant model. And they've done a great job. On No, I really shouldn't comment on exiting the hardware business. I will make a couple of observations, though. First of all, most people think that the iPad is well designed for textbooks, and it's not. That doesn't mean the iPad isn't great, and we've invested in multiple companies that think iPad is cool, but people underestimate the value of a large screen for a textbook. And if you go talk to PhD students or academics, they will instantly gravitate to that idea. And so, you know, No is going to continue to have what some people say is that huge honking 2-page textbook reader, but they also have the
Looks
Uno,
like the tablets that Moses brought down.
But you know, the fact of the matter is, when you set that thing down and you view a textbook on it, it just kicks ass over every single other textbook reader, and nobody else has penetrated textbooks with their tablet computers. And so I think Usman has done a very good job of thinking about where does it need to perform way better and where can it even perform worse. And those are the fundamental trade-offs that any entrepreneur has to make. And time will tell whether he's right, but a lot of really smart people think that he's right. And you know, when you look at what the students are saying, which is what really matters, not the chattering class of Silicon Valley, he gets very good reviews for the product.
Do you think hardware has been a distraction for the company, though?
I don't, because I think that in the early days, you just almost can't make the product work without. So, to me, the original hardware is sort of a reference implementation of the design and a lot of the early innovation. And people just radically underestimate the innovation that's gone into that product. I mean, Mark Andreessen said it well once that more innovation's gone into that tablet than any tablet by far. And so you got to get close to the metal to really pull that off.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.